Hello, welcome to another episode of Zariya. Today, joining us is Faran Tahir, American and Pakistani actor, somebody that I've been a huge fan of. Welcome to Zariya, Faran.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So, Farhan, given what has happened in Pakistan last week, and for the last few, I don't know, decades, why do you think people, especially men, don't understand the meaning of consent?
Yeah, look, I think it's a very serious issue, and it's being seen all over the world. I think it's unfortunate that we have to now look at it from a gender perspective. I think it's more of a human's rights perspective. Anyone, man, woman, otherwise, when we say no, or when we have a certain stance on something, that needs to be respected. And I think those lines are getting muddied. And that is a really unfortunate thing. And I also don't like that when something like this happens, a lot of people then start focusing on that the messaging on social media was wrong or whatever. It is not a question of the messaging on social media. That's a separate conversation that we can have at some point. At this point, for a person to have the right, a human to have the right to say no or yes, completely and solely stays with them, and it should stay with them. And I think people should respect that. But there is so much obfuscation and so much. But part of it is that we don't have these conversations. Parents are not having these conversations with their kids. We we only talk about these things when something of this magnitude and this kind of tragedy happens, is when we start talking about these things. This is a conversation that should be an ongoing conversation between people,
Do you
but
think
we're
that,
not doing that.
absolutely, do you think that there is a polarization of opinion? I mean, we've sadly seen people celebrating the tragedy, the absolute horror, and I have no idea, what goes through their mind. So do you think that this faction of people, what do you think their mindset is like?
Well, I can only venture to guess what their mindset is, because I think these are people who haven't been either given the tools or given the awareness of the fact that we do have to respect people's opinions, and we have to respect people's stances. To say that, I can convince somebody to like me or not like me is an absurd assumption. The right should remain with the person. And for somebody to have been punished literally with their life because their point of view did not align with yours is a very dangerous place for us to be.
Farhan,
You
I
know,
don't know if you're like watching the dramas in Pakistan, and some of them have great stories, wonderful artists, but some have narratives and storylines that are very problematic. And, audiences can sort of take away what they want from it. Do you think there's a responsibility on the media outlets or, production houses to put out better stories that show empowering characters?
of course, I think it is our social responsibility to make sure that the right messages are going out. If you're going to talk about, if one is going to talk about this kind of a stance where it's machoistic uh, take on the world, what are the solutions that we're giving with it? Are we celebrating it? If that's how we are framing it, then that's what people are going to take away from it. So I think there is a larger responsibility that we all have. Production houses, people, we should create forums where these conversations are taking place. So yeah, I think it has to be a concerted effort from all of us, whether we're in media or not.
I agree. But since that's your background, I think I wanted to delve into it. I've always thought that there's a hypocrisy on the values placed on who I am as a woman and that on a man. So you may have a lot more freedom to do things that you wish, and I may not. Do you think there's a hypocrisy? The same.
Absolutely. Absolutely, there's hypocrisy. And look, I mean, to me, this idea is so foreign because if I look back into my family history, and if I look at, my great grandmother started the first magazine for women in 1897, right? My grandmother was a writer, was a pilot. My mother was someone who worked all her life. So, there is a social responsibility that we should be encouraging rather than discouraging that kind of behavior and supporting it. But there is a lot of, and I think we sometimes assign it to religion, and religion has nothing to do with it. Religion has its own examples of empowering women and empowering the other gender. It's cultural. It's our own fear that we can't control, and the world unfortunately is so far, and I hope it's not. It's driven by mostly by men right now. I mean, that's just
It
the
is a man's
reality.
world, and we live in it.
It is a man's world, and I don't approve of it, but we have to understand the reality of it. Most leaders are men. Most CEOs are men. Yes, there's improvement and all that, but there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. And again, I think we need to, at some point, hopefully, it will not become a question of gender. Hopefully, it'll become a question of a human being. But we are not there yet.
I genuinely don't, not just don't feel safe, but I don't think the same sort of dignity is given to me or is my right. And when I say me, I am speaking for women that I know are my peers, my friends, my families, that people I've met. What to you is the most triggering when you get up in the morning and you're scrolling through your Instagram and maybe you're reading something or somebody tells you something around you? What is it that you fear most about the situation?
Look, I feel because it's a sliding scale. We when we start talking about infringing people's rights, where do we stop? I think it's very, very disturbing to me when I see in the morning when people's rights, whether it's civil rights, whether it's human rights, whether it's whatever kinds of rights, which if you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, which are the basis of humanity. When we start to defy that, when we start to create separations, and when we start to think of ourselves as better, either as a man, that I'm better than a woman, or as a class, that I'm a better than the other person, or as a religion, or whatever that is. I think the what we have what is eroded is a certain level of empathy that we should have with another human being. And if we approach things from that empathetic perspective of being a human, I think a lot of these things can be resolved. But I don't think there's enough being done on it. It's only done in fits and starts when something tragic happens. Then we start talking about these things. But then it's too late. We have to have these conversations with our children, starting as being a parent. I should, and I have had these conversations with my son, with my daughter, what their rights are, to how to hold themselves high and be proud of who they are, no matter what they are. Those are important questions, and how to respect other people. These are not questions. These are not conversations that I think are being had frequently in households right now.
And do you think that there's a different conversation taking place with families are doing with their sons as opposed to their daughters? Because a lot of I've been reading a lot and I see people saying, oh, raise your sons well, you know give them the education, the value system that can influence. what we're seeing. Do you think there's more work that needs to be done on how we raise our sons?
Absolutely. And for both genders. I mean, I have a daughter, I have an older daughter, and I have a younger son. And with my daughter, I had to make sure that she is not being influenced by a lot of the subliminal messaging that she's getting from the world. For women, it is you must look pretty. And who defines pretty, right? I mean, there's that side of it. For men, it is that we are told not to show our emotions, stiff upper lip, mard ka bacha ban. I mean, there's like all these different expressions that we have. That and what
आपके
that
ख्याल
is
में
doing
मर्द
is
का
that
बच्चा
is
कौन होता है? इधर से ही बात
मर्द
पूछती
का मर्द का बच्चा मेरे लिए वो होता है। और ये बात मैंने अपने बेटे से भी की थी कि बेटा, अगर तुम कहा लगा के हंस सकते हो किसी किसी फनी बात पर, तो तुम में ये जुर्रत भी होनी चाहिए कि जब तुम्हें किसी बात का दुख हो तो तुम रो भी सको। ओन योर फीलिंग्स, वो मर्द का बच्चा है मेरे लिए। Somebody who understands and owns his feelings, not diverts his weaknesses or his problems onto somebody else and project it on somebody else. That to me is being a real man and being a real woman, right? But these conversations are not being had enough. That's my biggest disappointment in where we are today in society.
And why do you think people are not having it? Is that because they're not sustained, or people are uncomfortable talking about this, or
But many things. I think, first of all, I think people have not had the wherewithal to find the tools how to have these conversations for one thing. Secondly, I think there is a side which is, especially for men, there is a controlling side. मेरी बीवी काम नहीं करेगी, भाई आपकी बीवी काम क्यों नहीं करेगी अगर वो करना चाहती है तो, राइट? ये चीजें जो है, these are cultural, not even cultural. These are issues that we have created for ourselves and created these standards, which we are not even analyzing that if this is a good standard to have. We are not having these conversations with our kids. We are not having these conversations in school. We are not having these conversations in forums or on social media enough. So I think that it's a larger problem, and because of that we get these tragic events like this poor young girl who was assassinated in cold blood.
I never understood, while I was in Lahore, that whatever it was that I was up to, or a woman was up to, a girl was up to, was everybody's business, you know.
Yes.
And everybody had a right to intervene or give unsolicited advice. You do this is better for you. And what you do essentially is rob them of their, not just choice, but just critical thinking,
Yeah.
analytical thinking.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
them to be great role models in going on, but you're not really giving them the skill set or the tools to deal with everyday life. And then, there's so much poverty, economic, social challenges. I don't know. Sometimes I fail to understand how we feel we can address them without um, having like an equality or a reformed system. And like you, I think I'm really frustrated, and I know that these conversations need to be there, but I also feel like there's this darkness that is perpetuated, and there are those people who feed off that darkness for whatever reason. One of the things I was very curious to find from you, I know that you are a male ally that we have, in the public space. So people out there are male allies, but do you think they're doing enough? Do you think they're talking to women around themselves? Do you think they are raising their voice? Because just saying, "Oh, I agree with you," may not be enough.
It's not enough. And I think it's not even that men should have these conversations with women. I think men should have these conversations with men also, with boys also. You know what I mean? Uh, if we are not having these conversations, then we are not we are not being truthful, and we're not being honest, and we are not being supportive. Then हम लोगों को, मर्दों को, we have to change from within also, you know. It can't be done from the outside. Yes, there are other issues, as you said, which which contribute to this. Yes, low literacy rates have a lot to do with it, you know, uh, because people don't have the ability or the tools to have these conversations, and nobody's giving them those outlines, or those ways of having these conversations. So it becomes a vicious cycle of a strange kind of tunnel vision, and conservatism on a which becomes dangerous. We hold on to these things, and we give them the label of that this is what the religion tells us, that this is what the society
But it's
tells us,
being
but
done
nobody's
for
questioning these.
generations also. I mean, something
Exactly, and
that somebody's done, and we're repeating the cycle.
we're repeating the cycle. We're repeating the cycle कि हमारे घर में ऐसा नहीं होता. देखो, हमारे घर में वो ट्रेडिशंस होनी चाहिए जो अच्छी हैं, और
Mm.
जो अच्छी नहीं है, those traditions should be at least examined or analyzed or at least questioned. But we are not doing that. ये वही हाल है, which if we talk about religion, this is when Islam came in, when people were not breaking these cycles of burying their daughters when they were born. I mean, all of that was a tradition, but it needed to be questioned. And I think it is our responsibility as human beings to question our traditions, celebrate the good ones, analyze and remove and criticize the ones that are detrimental to our society and to us as humans.
I love the messaging that you're giving us, and and how you're sort of deep diving on what the challenges might be. As a last question, I want to ask you, why is dissent such an issue for us? Why is it that I can disagree with you on something and still live harmoniously, um, get along, be different, and just be celebrated in that?
Well, I think one of the things that we have done, and this is all over the world, and speaking, in acting parlance, we don't have dialogues anymore. You
Mm.
see, we do monologues with each other. If you and I are on the opposite side of an issue, when you are speaking, I'm already thinking of the rebuttal to to your points. I'm not listening to you. What
Mm.
I'm doing is that I'm waiting until I can then give you a rebuttal. Then I'll pat myself on the back, and you'll pat yourself on the back, and we'll both go our separate ways, and nothing will get resolved. A true dialogue happens when two people or a group of people listen to each other. That is a difficult way, that is a difficult path to go on, but a necessary one. And we are not doing that anymore. Our dissent and everything is now become that just because I believe in this, therefore this must be right. And that is a very dangerous precedence to set. Why can we not have a conversation? Why can't we be challenged on our beliefs, on our value systems? I'm not saying that by being challenged means that we must change everything, but we should have the capacity and the intelligence to be able to withstand uh, a conversation on such things. But I think we have created, because now we have conversations that are combative. We don't have conversations that are constructive. So
It's
I think
become, I'm better than you, like you said earlier.
exactly, 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 exactly. And look, I mean, any time when you think that you know more than somebody else, I mean, that's kind of being a fool. Only a fool thinks that he knows everything.
Hmm.
But I guess
Before
I
you
guess
learn,
we
you
would much
realize
rather be
how little you
fools.
know.
Exactly, exactly. But I guess we would much rather be fools than than grow. So I think it's really tragic, and it really hurts me when we even have to talk about allies. I mean, it's such a sad state that we have to talk about that women should have male allies.
Yeah.
I think that should be naturally given, that if somebody's rights as a human, again,
As a
gender
principle.
without gender, if somebody's rights are being trampled, we must. This is our this should be who we are. That when somebody's rights are being trampled, I think we should have the courage to stand up and speak for it. But it is a sad state that we are still talking about allies. But that's where the world is.
That's where we're at. And I hate to be repeating myself, but that's sometimes I become a pessimist because of what I see. And then I really hope that things change drastically and there are measures in place where we find ourselves in a different world, in a better world with time to come.
Yes, yes. And I think, again, I think because we have these conversations sporadically, because these conversations come up when some tragic event has taken place, we think that having one or two conversations is going to change people's minds. It's not. It has to be an ongoing conversation. It has to be part of our regular conversation. These issues need to be brought up daily. Change doesn't happen. I don't believe in revolutions. I believe in evolutions. There are no revolutions in people's minds. You evolve, and for evolution, we need to have these conversations regularly and in different forums from different angles. That's what we need. We all have a responsibility in it. I have a responsibility to talk to my kids. I also have a responsibility to talk to my elders if I feel that we are on opposite sides of an issue. Similarly, I mean, I should have these conversations with my friends. These conversations need to be part of our regular life rather than a special event.
Yeah. And on that note, thank you so much, Farhan. I also feel like we all need a seat at the table. We all need the opportunity to be
Yes.
at the table. Thank you so much for your
Yes.
time, Farhan.
Yes.
It's
No,
been,
thank you for having me, because these are really important conversations, and I hope that people do engage in these conversations as much as possible. So thank you so much for having me.
thank you.